The house was breathing when she left it. Not literally, of course. But the old wood inhaled the morning damp, the curtains swayed with a rhythm too human to ignore, and the scent of cedar polish hung like a whispered promise of return. Christina paused on the threshold, luggage handle digging into her palm, and felt the quiet pulse of ownership thud in her chest. Every nail, every floorboard, every light switch bore the fingerprint of her precision. The world outside smelled of cold rain and roasted coffee. Portland's streets shimmered with puddles reflecting a sky that couldn't decide between dawn and cloud. Christina locked the door once. Then again, the second click was for peace of mind, her private ritual against chaos. 3 weeks, she murmured to herself, sliding the key into her coat pocket like a secret. It'll wait. Her flight would take her to Boston. Keynote address, research symposium, the kind of event that earned prestige in polite academic circles, but stole pieces of her personal life every time. Still, work had always been the one thing she could control. People were unpredictable, data wasn't. Inside, the house exhaled softly behind her. She didn't notice. The airport was a gallery of anonymous motion. Rolling suitcases, paper cups, the unblinking choreography of departures. Christina moved through it all like someone observing a distant species. Her phone buzzed twice. Messages from colleagues, then one from her sister. Christina smiled, the kind of smile that comes with careful rehearsal. Vanessa had always been sunshine and static at once, the younger sister who could charm a room then borrow money from it before she left. Christina typed a polite thanks, added an emoji that looked sincere and shut her phone off. By the time the plane broke through the cloud line, she had folded her life neatly into compartments, conference slides, presentation notes, and the faint nostalgia for a home that was perfectly still. Ibruku when she landed, Boston's air carried that East Coast bite. Metallic, brisk, full of ambition. She slid into a cab and stared at the reflection in the window. 37 years old, 2 PhDs, one sister who still lived between couches. Achievement had made her fluent in solitude. That night, after the keynote dinner, she returned to her hotel room. Sterile, expensive, and utterly forgettable, and poured herself a glass of Hotel Chardonnay. The city glittered beneath her window like a grid of busy intentions. She checked her phone out of habit, scrolling through the ordinary, emails, weather, another message from Vanessa. Vanessa, you'll laugh, but I'm at your place. Didn't want it sitting empty, feels like home already love you. The glass froze halfway to her lips. Another text followed before she could breathe. Julian helped me bring a few boxes. You won't mind, we'll water the plants. Christina read the words twice, 3 times, each repetition stealing oxygen from the room. A line she had drawn years ago, unspoken but sacred, had just been crossed by someone who had always mistaken generosity for permission. The next few minutes unspooled in sterile clarity. She called Vanessa, no answer, texted back, what are you doing? Called again, then finally reached voicemail. Her heart wasn't racing, it was calculating. Her sister was impulsive, yes. But moving in, that was something else. She opened her laptop, checked her home security feed. The app lagged. When the image finally resolved, her living room appeared on screen, and there, half visible, was a stranger's duffel bag beside her piano. The feed glitched, flickered, froze. Christina stared at the still image of her own sanctuary, occupied. A tremor, small but definite, ran through her hand. She set the glass down. Somewhere in the back of her mind, a thought surfaced and stayed there, cold and certain. Ebru, she thinks I won't do anything. Christina closed the laptop, straightened her posture, and whispered to the empty room. You just declared war. Outside, the city lights pulsed like a warning. Back in Portland, the house that breathed her name exhaled, and something inside it began to change. The call connected on the 5th ring. Chris! Oh my God, you sound so serious, Vanessa laughed, that bright, lilting sound that always hid 1,000 small manipulations. Relax, it's not a big deal. Christina's pulse flattened. You're in my house. Well, yeah. But it's temporary, Vanessa said. You're gone for weeks. The place was just sitting there, empty. Julian and we just needed somewhere quiet. You'd hate the idea of it wasting space. It's not wasted space, Christina said slowly. It's my space. A pause, the faint echo of clinking glass. You sound angry, Vanessa replied, her tone softening into a practiced innocence. I thought you'd understand. You've got this beautiful home, all those rooms. We just needed a breather. You'd do the same for me, right? Abruje. Christina pressed a hand against her temple. The line between exhaustion and fury thinned to a wire. You don't get to decide what I do, she said. You leave tomorrow. No excuses. Ibruf. Vanessa sighed. The kind of sigh that always preceded tears she didn't mean. You don't have to be so dramatic. I'm your sister. Hebrew. But that word, sister, had begun to sound like a weapon. Ibrahim's sleep didn't come that night. The hotel room with the buzz of the minibar fridge, a sterile reminder of how far she was from control. Her mind replayed old moments, the ones she'd filed away under forgiven, not forgotten. Vanessa at 19, maxing out a shared credit card. Vanessa at 25, borrowing their mother's jewelry to pawn it for rent. Each memory was a small theft dressed in apology. And yet, Christina had always said yes. Until now. By morning, the ache behind her eyes had sharpened into something precise. She called her neighbor Jeffrey, retired, dependable, with a gardener's patience for detail. Jeff, she said quietly, I need you to check my place. He didn't ask why. He'd lived next door long enough to know the tremor in her voice wasn't fear. It was fury under control. Hours later, as her phone vibrated with Jeffrey's photo messages, Christina felt her stomach knot. Photo 1, her front door, propped open with a sneaker. Photo 2, a pile of clothes, Vanessa's clothes, spilling across the entryway like an uninvited season. Photo 3, a cigarette stubbed out on her grandmother's ceramic dish. Christina scrolled through each image with surgical detachment, as if distance could dilute the violation. They've been there a few days at least, Jeffrey said when he called. Music late at night. Some guy around with a beard. Guess that's Julian. You want me to say something? Burfy, she considered. The answer lodged somewhere between not yet and absolutely. No, she said finally. Just keep an eye out. That evening, her conference badge felt heavier around her neck. She sat through panels and applause, nodding when colleagues praised her keynote, every smile a hollow reflex. The applause in the ballroom felt misplaced. She was being celebrated for research precision while her own life unraveled in real time. At the hotel bar, she ordered bourbon neat. Her phone lay face down beside the glass. The thought came uninvited but clear. Vanessa expects forgiveness the way some people expect gravity. Forgiveness wasn't coming this time. Ibruka at 2:13 a.m. Another message appeared on her phone. Ibruke Vanessa, we love it here. It's got such good energy. I even lit candles. Hope that's okay. Ibruker candles. In a 100-year-old craftsman house. Christina sat up so quickly the sheets tangled around her legs. Her breath came sharp and deliberate. The air conditioning clicked louder than it should. She could almost smell it, wax, smoke, intrusion. She opened her notes app and typed a single line, Ibr, if she won't leave willingly, she'll leave legally. Outside the hotel window, rain slid down the glass in silver threads. Somewhere between their two time zones, one sister slept soundly inside another's home, while the other began to plan the kind of justice that didn't come with hugs or apologies. Christina stared at the skyline until the lights blurred, and the city below seemed to whisper the truth she had been avoiding all her life. Some boundaries aren't meant to be negotiated. They're meant to be enforced. Christina's flight landed under a curtain of rain, Portland gray, thick and familiar. The city smelled like wet bark and burnt espresso, a scent she had once found comforting. Not tonight. The Uber driver talked about the weather. She didn't respond. Every raindrop on the window felt like a countdown to confrontation. When the car turned onto Hawthorne Street, her house appeared through the fog, warm lights spilling from windows that should have been dark. For a second, the sight looked peaceful. Then the truth sharpened it into trespass. Someone was home. She asked the driver to stop at the corner. I'll walk from here. The night pressed around her, thick with the hiss of rain. She pulled her coat tighter, approached quietly, her shoes sinking into the mud by the garden bed she'd once planted with lavender. The air was wrong. Cigarette smoke and something oily, chemical. Through the front window, she saw movement. Vanessa crossed the living room in one of Christina's cashmere sweaters, laughing at something Julian said from the couch. The piano in the corner had a red solo cup on it. A ring of moisture stained the polished wood. Christina's heartbeat slowed into a dangerous calm. She didn't knock. She opened the door with her own key. The laughter stopped. Vanessa froze mid-sentence, eyes widening. You're back early. I can see that, Christina's. Her voice sounded different, clipped, surgical. Get up. Julian tried for a smirk. We were just, trespassing, she cut in. You were trespassing in my house. Vanessa's smile faltered. Oh, come on, Chris, don't start with the drama. We just needed a few weeks to… Christina raised her hand. Stop. Her eyes moved across the room. Over the overturned vase, the burned candle wax on the table, the stack of unpaid bills on the mantel. Every object told a story of carelessness. Then she saw it. The framed photo of their mother shattered on the floor. Something inside her broke cleanly. You sold my grandmother's table. The words were quiet, dangerous. Vanessa looked confused, then defensive. We needed cash. You have plenty. You wouldn't even miss it. Christina stepped closer, voice low. That table was the only thing she left us, and you sold it. For the first time, Vanessa seemed to register fear. I didn't mean, we can fix this. Briffin, no, Christina said. You can't. Habrika later. She wouldn't remember the drive to the police station, only the rhythmic swish of wipers and the hollow sound of her pulse. Filing the report felt surreal. Calm tone, legal language, the detached efficiency of someone reporting a stolen identity. Do you want to press charges? The officer asked, his pen hovering. Christina hesitated, not out of doubt, but disbelief that it had come to this. She thought of Vanessa at 16, sneaking into her dorm room for comfort after their father left, of Christmas mornings when they had promised to always protect each other. And then she thought of the table, the cigarettes, the smirk. Yes, she said, I do. The officer nodded once. Then we'll need to serve an eviction order immediately. By morning, the legal gears had begun to turn. The locksmith changed every lock. The officer stood by as Vanessa gathered her things in silence, rain flattening her hair. Julian cursed under his breath but complied. Christina didn't watch them leave. She was upstairs, in her study, holding the one surviving photo of their grandmother. The glass cracked through her smile. Outside, Vanessa shouted up toward the window, voice trembling. You're choosing stuff over family! Christina didn't respond. The window pane reflected her face. Pale, unreadable, older somehow. No, she whispered, almost to herself. I'm choosing peace. But when the police car pulled away and the house fell quiet for the first time in weeks, she realized peace wasn't what it felt like. It felt like aftermath, the still air after an explosion. The rain slowed, tapping against the roof like hesitant applause. She sank to the floor beside the cracked photo, her breathing shallow, her mind replaying the moment Vanessa's voice broke at the door. Some boundaries save you, others scar you forever. Christina didn't yet know which kind she had drawn. The silence in the house was unnatural. It wasn't the soft quiet of a home restored. It was the hollow, stunned kind that follows after shouting. The walls seemed to absorb the absence of Vanessa's voice, the thud of boxes dragged out, the static hum of guilt. Christina stood in the middle of the living room, surrounded by the remnants of her victory. Eviction notice pinned to the fridge, legal folder open on the coffee table, a keyring that now held the only working locks. It should have felt triumphant. Instead, it felt sterile. She sat down and stared at her hands. The tremor hadn't stopped since the hearing that morning. Judge Patricia's words replayed in her head. Ms. Keller, the law is clear. You are entitled to restitution and full recovery of property. Entitled. The word tasted bitter. Sir Brucher. 2 days later, Vanessa called. The number appeared on screen, familiar and foreign at once. Christina almost ignored it. Almost. When she finally answered, her voice was low. This isn't a good time. I know. Vanessa's voice cracked. It never is with you anymore. I'm not doing this. Chris, please, just hear me out. A long pause. Rain beat against the window like fingers impatient for permission. You ruined me, Vanessa said finally. Do you understand that? The court fees, the garnishments, Julian leaving. You burned my life to the ground. Christina closed her eyes. You burned it yourself. I just stopped shielding you from the fire. I'm your sister. Eber you were, the line went dead. At work, the applause returned, colleagues congratulating her on the paper she'd published, on the precision of her arguments. Precision was the word they always used for her, the woman who could turn chaos into data. But no amount of analysis could make sense of what gnawed at her now. The faint, nauseating realization that she had wanted Vanessa to suffer, not just learn. That night, she couldn't sleep. She wandered through the house with a mug of cold tea, noting every repaired item like a scar, the refinished table she'd bought to replace the one Vanessa sold, the rug scrubbed clean of cigarette ash, the new piano polish that didn't smell like her grandmother's anymore. Control had returned, warmth hadn't. A week later, an envelope arrived in her mailbox. No return address, just her name written in Vanessa's rushed handwriting. Inside was a photo, the two of them as kids covered in flour, baking cookies in their mother's kitchen. On the back, a single line, "I wish you'd remembered the girl in this picture before you destroyed her." Christina stared at it until her eyes blurred. Then she tore it in half. When Jeffrey came by to check on the new locks, she tried to sound normal. "You did what you had to," he said simply, tools clinking in his bag. "Boundaries are like fences. You build them to keep the peace, not to start wars." "Ibrch." "I didn't build a fence," she murmured. "I built a wall." He gave her a look that was part sympathy, part warning. Walls keep people out. But they keep light out, too. After he left, the house felt smaller. The walls, freshly painted, newly secure, seemed to close in around her. She poured a drink and sat by the window, watching the city lights flicker like nervous thoughts. Somewhere across town, Vanessa was probably packing up again, another temporary life, another borrowed couch, and for the first time, the image didn't make Christina angry, it made her tired. Hamburg at midnight, her phone buzzed again. A new message from Vanessa, just 4 words. Brashear, you've made your point. Christina read it over and over, her reflection ghosting against the dark window. The satisfaction she expected never came. Instead, something colder did, a dawning awareness that she had crossed an invisible line. Justice had become punishment. And yet, the part of her that still trembled from betrayal whispered, she earned it. Outside, thunder cracked. The storm finally broke, heavy and relentless. Christina set her phone down, walked to the window and whispered to the dark, "Then why do I feel like I lost?" The rain didn't answer, but the house did. A single creak in the wood, as if it too was trying to remember what forgiveness used to sound like. The call came just after midnight. "Miss Keller?" The voice on the line was calm, official, practiced. "This is Officer Dunn with Portland Fire and Rescue. There's been an incident at your residence." Christina's hand froze midair, the mug slipping from her grip and shattering against the tile. For a second, the words didn't land. They hovered like static. "An incident?" she repeated, breath thinning. "There was a small fire on your property," he said. "Contained quickly, no injuries reported. But we did find someone there when we arrived." "Aha!" She didn't need him to finish. "Vanessa," she whispered. The drive home blurred, lights stretching into long white ribbons, sirens echoing in her skull, though none followed her. By the time she turned onto Hawthorne Street, the rain had stopped, leaving the air sharp with smoke. The house stood dark, its left side window blackened around the edges. A fire truck idled in the street, lights pulsing in rhythmic apology. Yellow tape fluttered like nervous breath. "Ma'am," an officer said as she approached, "you can't go in yet." Christina barely heard him, her eyes locked on the figure sitting on the curb, wrapped in a soot-streaked blanket. Vanessa. She was barefoot. Ash in her hair. Her hands trembled around a plastic water bottle. When she looked up, her eyes were red, not from tears but from smoke and exhaustion. "I didn't mean to," she said, voice hoarse. "I just wanted to talk to you." Christina stood motionless, her heart ricocheting between fury and disbelief. "You broke in again." I still had a key, the old one. Vanessa swallowed hard. "I thought if I could just show you, I don't know, I lit a candle." "I was nervous. I just wanted you to listen." A firefighter nearby muttered something about luck, how the curtain caught, how the neighbor saw smoke early. Christina's stomach twisted. If Jeffrey hadn't noticed, "Hey, Brooker, you could have burned the whole place down." Ibreca, Vanessa's voice cracked. I know. Hebre, for the first time, she wasn't performing. The arrogance was gone. What remained was something raw and unrecognizable, shame. I kept seeing you everywhere, Vanessa said. On the news for your research, on Mom's fridge and photos. Everyone talking about how perfect you are. I hated it, I hated you, and I hated myself for hating you. She coughed, the sound breaking apart. You got all the control, I got all the chaos, and maybe I leaned into it because it was the only way to feel real. Christina knelt down, slowly, her knees brushing wet pavement. You don't break into someone's home to feel real. I didn't come to steal this time, Vanessa said softly. I came to return something. She fumbled with her blanket, pulling out a small, soot-covered jewelry box. Inside, the cracked remains of their grandmother's locket glinted weakly under the streetlight. I found it at the pawn shop. I bought it back. I was going to leave it on your desk with a note. Then the curtain caught fire and... Ebrew. Her voice collapsed into a sob. Christina took the box. It was warm, faintly smelling of smoke. Inside, the locket's hinge still worked. She turned it in her hand, feeling its fragile insistence to remain whole. A paramedic approached. We'll take her in for observation. Vanessa looked up, eyes swimming. Chris, I'm sorry. For once, Christina had no words ready. The fury had drained, replaced by something harder, recognition. You can't stay here anymore, she said quietly. But maybe you can start somewhere else. Vanessa nodded, tears streaking through soot. As they led her away, Christina stood beneath the fractured porch light, clutching the locket. The house behind her still smoked, its charred window reflecting red and blue in alternating flashes, like a heartbeat refusing to quit. She should have felt victorious. Instead, all she felt was the ache of being the last witness to a family that had burned itself down long before the match was ever struck. The night settled around her, silent now except for the faint drip of water from the eaves. She looked at the blackened edge of her home and realized something undeniable. It wasn't the fire that destroyed it. It was the years of pretending that love could survive without boundaries. Christina closed her eyes. When she opened them again, dawn was bleeding into the horizon, smoke fading but the lesson still burning. The morning after the fire, the house smelled like ghosts. Faint smoke, damp plaster, something metallic beneath it all, like memory cooling down. Christina walked through the blackened hallway with a clipboard in hand, pretending the act of documenting damage could make the loss smaller. The restoration crew had already taped off the living room, fans humming low, drying what could be saved. She paused by the piano. Its wood was blistered along one edge, keys dusted in gray. A small burn on the lid traced a crescent, ugly and intimate. It could be repaired, the man had said. Everything's repairable, ma'am, with the right work. He was wrong, of course. Not everything. On the table sat the jewelry box Vanessa had brought, still streaked with soot. Inside, the locket gleamed faintly, resilient in its ruin. Christina held it in her palm, felt its warmth return slowly, as if reluctant to trust her touch. Days passed in a rhythm of cleanup and silence. The fire had been contained. Insurance handled, locks changed again. Neighbors stopped by with casseroles and polite concern. She thanked them all, practiced gratitude like it was part of her rehab. At night, though, the quiet pressed harder. Sleep came shallow. When she did drift off, she dreamed of the house as it once was, sunlight slanting through polished glass, Vanessa humming from another room, laughter echoing off fresh paint. Then the dream always ended the same way, a door closing and the smell of smoke creeping back in. A letter arrived from the county correctional facility a week later. She recognized Vanessa's handwriting instantly, the slant too eager, the lowercase y curling like apology. For 2 days, she didn't open it. Then one night she did. I know you probably won't read this. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I just want you to know the fire wasn't about hate. It was about wanting to start over, even if I had to burn what reminded me of what I wasn't. I'm getting help. I'm learning how to be still. Please take care of the house. It always looked like home because you made it one. Christina folded the letter carefully, placed it in the drawer beside the locket. There was no forgiveness yet, but something inside her softened. Not a thaw, more like the beginning of a spring drip through ice. When spring came in earnest, the contractors finished their work. New paint, new windows, the scent of smoke finally faded, replaced by fresh pine and faint varnish. The home looked whole again, but in the same way a healed wound still carries a shadow beneath the skin. Christina invited Jeffrey for dinner, her first guest since everything. They ate quietly, the air filled with the steady ticking of the repaired clock. "She's writing me letters now," Christina said at last. "They're clearer. Honest, maybe." Jeffrey nodded, neither approving nor condemning. Sometimes people only learn who they are when everything else burns away. She smiled faintly. "I suppose that's true." Later, after he left, she stood on the porch under a thin crescent moon. The night air smelled clean, like the earth had exhaled something old. She thought of Vanessa in some counseling hall, scribbling letters, rehearsing accountability. Thought of their grandmother's locket, small and resilient in its imperfection. Thought of herself, the woman who once mistook control for peace, justice for healing. She whispered into the quiet, "We're both rebuilding." The wind carried the words off the porch, out into the neighborhood, into whatever distance existed between her and her sister. Inside, the piano waited. She sat down, pressed one tentative key. The sound was soft, imperfect, beautiful. For the first time in months, the house didn't feel haunted. It felt awake. She closed her eyes and let the note linger, filling the air with something between grief and grace. Outside, the dawn began its slow climb over Portland, washing the rooftops gold. And for the first time since the night she left for Boston, Christina felt the house breathe again. Not the brittle breath of memory, but the steady rhythm of survival. This time, it exhaled peace.